The Miami Dolphins may be on their bye week, but there's no slowing down in South Florida. Even with no game on the schedule, this team continues to reshape and prepare for the stretch ahead. Today, Miami made another roster adjustment, not an addition to the 53-man squad, but an important move that could open the door for a key return. Safety linebacker Jordan Colbert has officially been placed on injured reserve after suffering a recent stinger and concussion. It's an unfortunate setback, but the decision itself isn't surprising. Miami needed roster flexibility, especially with several potential returnees waiting for their shot after the bye. And with Colbert moving to IR, the Dolphins now have an open roster spot that could become very valuable in the coming days. Before we push deeper into who might fill that spot, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with your friends, and hit that bell icon so you never miss an update. This season is only getting more intense, and we've got a lot to break down. Now, back to business. If you're asking me how Miami will fill that open slot, the answer feels obvious. The most likely move is activating a player from injured reserve rather than bringing in another free agent. They've already dipped into another team's practice squad this week by adding cornerback A.J. Green, but given the number of Dolphins currently on IR, the next step seems almost inevitable. Players eligible to return include Austin Jackson, whose 21-day practice window is already open, along with Jason Sanders, James Daniels, and tight end Darren Waller, who recently completed his required 4-game absence. Out of that group, Jackson appears to be the clear frontrunner. Since his practice window has opened, Miami must activate him before December 2nd or he's done for the season. And if the Dolphins plan on putting him back on the field, he should be returning no later than Week 13 against the Saints. Waller is a possibility too, but that feels far less certain. Jackson is the more realistic and more impactful move. If he returns, he's expected to reclaim his spot as the starting right tackle. Larry Borom has stepped up admirably over the past month, especially in that impressive performance against Washington and Madrid, but Jackson's role is still his to retake. Borom will likely shift back into the swing tackle position once Jackson returns. And here's why Miami absolutely has to evaluate Jackson down the stretch. 2026 is his final year under contract, and his cap number is significant. These final weeks could determine how the Dolphins approach his future and how they shape their offensive line for seasons to come. Austin Jackson's contract isn't impossible to move, but it's far from simple. He carries a base salary of $9.8 million next season, with a cap hit hovering around $15 million. On top of that, he earns a $1 million roster bonus if he's still on the team by March 13th, the third day of the new league year. Miami would also owe him $1.5 million in cash for the season. Yes, the Dolphins could create relief with a post-June 1st trade or release, but the real question is deeper than the numbers. Before Miami makes any long-term decision, they need to see who Austin Jackson truly is. Because the reality is tough. He has missed at least 9 games this year. He missed half of last season, and his level of play hasn't been strong enough to justify all that lost time. It feels like the moment of truth has arrived. If Jackson doesn't show the reliability Miami needs, the franchise may have to plan for a future without him at right tackle. And that's a painful conversation, because he's still only in his mid-20s, young enough to grow, talented enough to hope for, but inconsistent enough to worry about. Miami has a franchise left tackle in Patrick Paul. That much is clear. But can Austin Jackson be the long-term answer on the opposite side? Right now, it's hard to say yes. The Dolphins need someone they can count on for the next 5, 6, even 8 seasons. And unless Jackson proves he can stay on the field and play at a high level, the team may have no choice but to search for a new cornerstone at right tackle this upcoming offseason. Now, let's turn our attention to another major storyline, the status of tight end Darren Waller. Waller has been one of Miami's most effective offensive weapons when healthy, even though he appeared in only 4 games, really 3.5, since he exited early in the matchup against Cleveland on October 22nd. After that game, he was placed on injured reserve, and since then, fans have been waiting for good news. That update could finally be coming soon. With the bye week ending, Miami is expected to evaluate Waller's progress when players return to the facility on Monday. If his practice window opens, it will be the first real sign that he's nearing a return. He may not be ready for Week 13 against the Saints, but Week 14 against the Jets feels like a realistic target. And make no mistake, the Dolphins could absolutely use him. In the 3 full games he played, Waller looked like a nightmare for defenses, finding the end zone 4 times and hauling in 10 receptions despite limited snaps. His presence brought balance, explosiveness, and a matchup advantage that defenses struggled to contain. If Miami gets him back for the final stretch, it could be one of the biggest boosts this offense receives all year. When you look deeper into Darren Waller's season, the numbers tell a story that jumps off the screen. Among 65 qualified tight ends with at least 10 targets, Waller still ranks near the top of the league, despite playing only about 3.5 games. He's 8th in touchdowns, 16th in completion percentage when targeted, 19th in yards per route run, and an incredible 2nd in average depth of target. Even more impressive, he owns one of the highest quarterback ratings when targeted among all tight ends this year. That's domination in a limited sample, and it's exactly why the Dolphins want him back as soon as possible. But while Waller has been recovering, Miami's tight end production has taken a noticeable dip. Since he went on injured reserve on October 22nd, the Dolphins have played 4 games, weeks 8 through 11, and the results show just how badly they've missed him. Greg Dulcich leads all Miami tight ends during that stretch with 8 catches for 89 yards. Solid, but nowhere near the explosive threat Waller brings. Hayden Rucci has played in all 4 games, but hasn't received a single target. Julian Hill returned last week against Washington and picked up 1 catch for 14 yards, but that's still miles away from what Waller delivers when he's healthy. And honestly, it's not complicated. Darren Waller is Miami's best receiving tight end, by a wide margin. Dulcich has upside and can develop into a strong TE2 or TE3 with his speed and catch radius, but he doesn't command attention the way Waller does. When Waller is on the field, he changes the geometry of the defense. Safeties backpedal quicker. Linebackers hesitate. Matchups tilt. The Dolphins' offense simply feels different. Miami has been trying to adapt without him, finding creative ways to replace his presence in the passing game. Fans across social media have been talking about it, and it's time to break down exactly what the Dolphins have been doing and why Waller's return could be one of the biggest turning points of their season. One of the biggest adjustments Miami has made without Darren Waller has been a shift in personnel. Mike McDaniel has leaned heavily into a 6 offensive lineman package, and it has completely reshaped the rhythm of this offense. We've talked plenty about the starting 5 up front, but the unsung hero in all of this is Daniel Brunskill. He's stepped into multiple roles this season. Right guard when James Daniels went down, center when Aaron Brewer missed time, and now he's taken on a new assignment, functioning as an inline tight end. Since week 8, Brunskill has actually played more snaps at that inline tight end spot than any actual tight end on the roster. Even though Greg Dulcich has run more routes and lined up wide or in the slot more often, Brunskill has logged 57 snaps as the true inline tight end, slightly more than Dulcich's 56. And honestly, it's easy to see why Miami stuck with it. The results have been remarkable. In this new role, Brunskill has graded out as one of Miami's best blockers and even one of the top performers across the league during that stretch. His limited snaps have been elite, a strong overall grade, excellent pass protection, reliable run blocking, and not a single pressure allowed, let alone a sack. For a player essentially learning a new role, that's massive. But the impact goes far beyond one offensive lineman playing out of position. It has changed the entire offense. When Waller went down in week 8, Miami struggled. Through the first 7 weeks, the Dolphins sat near the bottom of the league in almost every major efficiency category. Bottom 5 in EPA per play and per dropback, and bottom 5 in rush success rate despite having some bright spots in the ground game. Then the shift happened. Over the last 4 weeks, Miami's offense has completely flipped the script. Against teams like the Falcons, Ravens, Bills, and Commanders, the Dolphins have climbed into the top half of the league across the board. EPA per play, EPA per rush, EPA per dropback, and success rate. Even when the defenses weren't dominant, Miami's improvement has been undeniable. The 6-lineman package has given this offense a physical edge, especially in the run game. But just as important, it has opened up Miami's play-action attack. When defenses see that 6th lineman check into the huddle, they anticipate power football. Linebackers tighten up. Safeties creep toward the box. And that's exactly when Miami strikes. With defenders biting on the run fake, routes from Jalen Waddle or Malik Washington across the middle suddenly have room to breathe. Those in-breakers and slants become deadly because the traffic behind them is slow to react. In this 4-week surge, Tua Tagovailoa and the Dolphins rank among the best in the league in play-action usage and efficiency. It's been a complete transformation, born not from star power, but from scheme, discipline, and smart personnel usage. And as Waller inches back toward a return, this evolution only becomes more dangerous. Over the last 4 weeks, the Dolphins have leaned heavily on play action, and the results speak for themselves. They're using it at one of the highest rates in the league, ranking top 5 in yards per play, completion percentage, big-time throw percentage, and quarterback rating when they sell the run. This shift has completely changed the rhythm of Miami's offense. Daniel Brunskill has benefited from it. Tua has benefited from it. Everyone in this system is operating more efficiently because of it. So what's the point of all these numbers? It leads us to one major conversation: the potential return of Darren Waller in the next few games. Of course, the Dolphins want him back. He's a difference maker. But his return should not pull Miami away from the 6 offensive lineman personnel that has been so effective. Just because Waller is healthy doesn't mean the Dolphins should abandon what's been working. This setup gives Tua more protection, cleaner throwing lanes, and a more controlled structure in the passing game. When Waller returns, Miami should use him primarily as a receiver, a big slot target, or an outside mismatch, rather than asking him to play a traditional inline tight end role. Brunskill and Julian Hill have handled that responsibility extremely well over the past month, and they've earned those snaps. That wraps up this section. The Dolphins have found something that works, and they shouldn't move away from it.